Hey, everybody. Welcome back to episode 63 of the Curvy Critic with Carla Renata at Black Hollywood Live. We got Ron Howard. We got Tichina Arnold. We got Tim Story from Shaft. Oh, Lord, there's a lot going on. Stay right there.
You're tuned into Black Hollywood Live, the world's first digital broadcast network devoted entirely to urban entertainment and pop culture. Tune in right now.
Hey, everybody. It is a solo journey here with your girl, Carla Renata, a.k.a. the Curvy Film Critic, or the Curvy Critic, whichever one you like. In honor of the Tonys, I'm all sparkly in my black sequins today because I'm a Broadway baby at heart, but I do still love movies the most. If you have been here before, if you're new to joining us, welcome. This is the Carla Renata Show. Nope. This is the Curvy Critic with Carla Renata at Black Hollywood Live. I am your host, and if you like the show, if you enjoy what you heard, if you enjoy what you saw, please pop on over to iTunes. Give me some love there. Leave me some comments. I will comment back. Give me some love over at iTunes, those 5 stars at Spotify and iTunes, and that will keep me very, very happy. So, I hope that you all had a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful week and that everything is good in your world. Hey, Michael B., nice to join me. Nice to join me. Nice of you to join us, I should say. And let's get right on into it. So, I had an opportunity to talk to Tichina Arnold, who I've known for decades, more or less. And we talked about her role in The Last Black Man in San Francisco, which is an A24 Plan B film that dropped on June 7th, this past Friday. Most of the films that I'm going to talk about today did. It's a film that centers around gentrification, San Francisco gentrification in particular, the relationships between two really young, really different young men. And Tichina is one of the few women in the film, other than the young lady that plays his mom. But listen to what she had to say about all of that. How you doing?
I'm good, girl. How are
you? I'm great. Now, I have to ask, being a black woman in America that is also in love with Brad Pitt, did he have anything to do with you taking on this project?
You know what? I don't know, Carla. I have no idea. All I know, I auditioned like everybody else, and Brad is with Brad Pitt's company. So, hey, Brad, how you doing? I haven't seen him, but I'm sure he's somewhere making moves. Thank you, Brad.
I saw this at the Sundance Film Festival where I ran into you there as well. It's directed by Joe Talbot. It's written by Talbot and Jimmy Fails. You play Jimmy's auntie, Wanda, who has all the family belongings after the family home had been repossessed, and he comes to you to get the family belongings back to you. But I also noticed that in the process of this film, you are literally the only female character in the film.
Yes, what I represent for Jimmy is the mother figure he never had. I think what Wanda represents for him is grounding, is consistency, is his solid, is his good memory, is the closest thing that he had to a mother figure. So Wanda represents in this film, which I love the fact that there is no love interest. The love interest is the house, but she represents grounding for him, his reality, his touch of reality, his connection to his childhood. That's what I loved and wanted this role so bad, because she's not that typical aunt. She's in a blazing relationship. She moved out of San Francisco, so she, Jimmy looks up to her. He trusts her. She's probably the one person other than Montgomery that he does trust.
One of the main issues of the film is gentrification in San Francisco. Yes. How much did you know about the city of San Francisco and that history attached to it before taking on this film?
Back in 1991, when I first moved to Los Angeles, I was homesick for New York. I'm a born and raised Jamaica Queens girl. So when I moved to LA in 91, I was homesick. I missed kind of the cool of the cold weather. I missed the winters. I missed the culture. So I used to fly to San Francisco just to get my feel for New York, so I could get, wouldn't be so homesick. And I didn't know that San Francisco was so rich in culture. I knew culturally it was the closest thing that I could get to something that was like New York. But learning all San Francisco's history is very interesting, and that's what I loved about doing this movie as well. I just learned a whole lot. Even talking to local San Franciscans and people from Oakland and people that have been there. I didn't even know Danny Glover was on San Francisco. I had no idea.
Wow.
So it's a lot of stuff that I learned, doing this project.
I saw an interview that you did maybe a day ago where you talked about The Last Man in San Francisco showing black men in a vulnerable state, specifically them not being arrested and sitting in a police car. And I just wanted to expound on that subject a little bit to see why it was so important for you to be a part of a project that does show black men like that. I mean, we have this limited series online right now with Ava DuVernay's Central Park 5
I
when they
role in that and I couldn't do it. Tell you which role.
Oh, I was like, can you tell me which role?
I can't. I knew that was the next question. I ain't gonna tell you, but yes, I was supposed to do that film and I couldn't do it, unfortunately. And I'm so honored that Ava asked to do it. Carla, so many times we've become conditioned to seeing black men a certain way. Even as a black woman in America, I have to check myself at times because the media puts a fake on the black man that is just not right. It's not fair, and I don't like it. I don't like watching those talk shows. I don't like it. I just don't like it. I say black men are everything. There's so many facets to black men. I fight for black men every day. I fight for our young black boys being shot in the middle of the street with no gun. It's become a huge problem, and we're becoming conditioned to seeing the bullshit. Black men, they've evolved so much. And me as a black woman, I've evolved so much. But there's certain things that I don't have to accept. I don't accept the way America depicts black men. I don't like it. I think a film like this, for me to be in show business all 40-something years, and then here I finally got an opportunity to be a part of a project that comes from a real place, it comes from a human place, it comes from a black man. And we have to tell more of our story. And I think Joe Talbot being a white man, I even asked him, I said, how did this happen? So Jimmy told me Joe was in the trenches with him. They lived in the same area. They lived in they're from the same hood. They help each other. So this story comes from a real place. So you don't have just a white guy telling the black man's story. That white man was in this black man's story. So that makes a difference with this movie as well. It comes from a great place.
Oh, okay. Well, it cut it off. This keeps happening to me with these interviews. But anyway, that was pretty much what she had to say about it. She enlightened me by letting me know that Jimmy Fowles and Joe Talbot, the director, grew up together and that they had this experience together. Because I was like, really? Did that really happen? Is there a white man directing this movie? Okay, we'll go with that. But anyway, it was really good. This is a role that you haven't seen, a type of role that you have not seen Tichina Arnold do before, and I highly suggest you checking it out. Again, that is The Last Black Man in San Francisco, starring Jimmy Fowles, Jonathan Majors, who's fantastic in it, and Tichina Arnold. A24 Plan B produced it. It was released on June 7th. Next up is Shaft. Now, there's the old school Shaft, and then there's the 3-generational Shaft, which is directed by Tim Story. He and I had a lot in common. We had a conversation about the generational versus the old school Shaft. We talked about the woman's role in the film, and plus, had to talk about some plus-size superheroes, being a plus-size sister myself, and a little Tom and Jerry. Take a listen to that one right now. Oh, what's up? This is a pre-taped interview with my boy, Tim Story.
Hey.
Why he acting like
hi?
Like,
hello.
Like all suspects.
How you doing?
How you doing? I'm doing good. I'm glad you're doing good too.
Right.
I can't. You are too funny. So this is what we have in common. Back in the day, I used to be a publicist, and in the intro, I said that you had something in common with Ice-T.
Yeah.
I have something in common with Ice-T, and I have something in common with you too. I was a publicist at Orchid Communications for Sheila Eldridge, and we did y'all's PR.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and I was. Wait a minute, so we know, so we've talked.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Oh, that's spooky. Okay. Ooh.
See, aren't you glad I waited? Because
yes.
you could have waited and finessed your reaction, but I just wanted the real deal.
Wow, that takes me. Ooh.
It take you
all
back,
right? Moving on. No, so last night. Yeah.
Yeah, I was talking about. Okay, no.
That's great.
Yeah. I could not wait. I was like, I was trying to get a little prepared, and when I saw, I kept looking at your name for years, trying to remember where I knew it from, and then I
Yeah.
saw that and I was like, I think we had them. I think we did press for them.
Absolutely.
I went through some old notes and I found that I'm like, wow, this is gonna be really funny. So yay.
Oh, that's scary. That takes me back though. Those are good
Those are
days.
good days, good times.
Good day. Yep.
So, for people that do not know who Tim Story is, although I can't imagine that they wouldn't know, you are the first African American director to make $1 billion at the box office. That right there is huge. So, congratulations on that.
Thank you. Hey.
Yes. Hey. We love that. I love that your films have grossed over more than $1 billion in stuff like Fantastic Four, Think Like a Man, Girls Trip, my all-time favorite for obvious
I didn't know
reasons.
Girls Trip.
You had something to do with it. You had something to do with somebody with it.
No.
Somebody with it. Yes, you did.
No, I did not.
You did. Stop
I
playing.
didn't.
Okay, I'm just playing. I wanted to get your reaction on that too.
Oh my God! Don't do
I
that
got
to
you.
me.
I got you. Okay. Ride Along. You've worked with
Yes.
Kevin Hart quite a few times, and you worked with Regina Hall quite a few times.
Yes, I have. That's my girl.
So what brings you back to working with those two people? Because they're really funny in their own right. What brings you back to them for various projects over and over again?
You know, they make a director's life real easy. Kevin, and you talk about Regina, they're just so funny. And I'm talking about funny beyond the camera, like when the cameras are off, in between scenes, preparation, talking about what we're going to do. And they're just a delight to be around. And when you have those type of people that you can work with over and over again, it just makes your life easier. And they're fun and they're great at what they do. It's just it's an all around plus. So.
Do you have any stories that you'd like to share, like funny stories that when you think about it, just brings a smile to your face about working with either one?
I'm trying to think. I probably have a zillion. It's like you put them on the spot. I can't think of any. Let's see.
We can move forward and we can come back.
Yeah,
to that.
if I
Would
come
you
back
like
to it, because I gotta. There's so many. I mean,
because y'all go back for a minute.
We go back. We've done a bunch of films. We spend a lot of time hanging out together. And we're such close friends. So we also hang out beyond the films. And something will come to me. I'm pretty sure.
Okay, cool. So let's talk about Shaft a little bit.
Please.
Shaft, for me, it comes from my generation. So it was like this big blaxploitation film when I was a kid. It was a really big deal because, believe it or not, Richard Roundtree used to be like an Ebony Fashion Fair model. Remember Ebony Fashion Fair?
Yes.
He was an Ebony Fashion Fair model.
Really?
Yes, really.
Well, I get it. He's the coolest.
He's the coolest, suavest, finest, chocolate brother out there. So it suffices to say that
you went somewhere. Okay.
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
And I'm coming back now.
All right, focus. All right, here we go.
I can't. Why? Stop playing with me. Stop. Okay, wait. Let me get it together. Okay. So, but having said all of that, he was cool. He put the cool in Shaft.
Yeah.
He put the suave in Shaft. And the Shaft that I saw in the blaxploitation days, it was an action film. It had some comedy infused in there, a little bit here and there. But for the most part, it was a drama. So this new infused version, which started with Samuel L. Jackson in 2000, and now with this incarnation in 2019, has a little bit more of a comedic edge and is dealing with 3 generations of Shaft. So what made you make that adjustment to have the 3 generations come to the forefront?
Well, I was lucky. I got a script from Kenya Barris, my man Kenya Barris, who wrote a really cool, just a cool script, and basically put the generations in the script. And the script was all about bringing these 3 generations together to solve a situation, to solve a crime, And so I didn't, so it was just me bringing that and bringing the visuals to it, bringing it to life. And so Kenya gave me that. And then I was lucky enough to have Sam, and then also have Richard Roundtree. I have the original Shaft. And then we brought on, newcomer Jesse T. Usher. And he, is just like the newest Shaft. And I think you guys are going to have a lot of fun watching them. Their chemistry, the 3 of their chemistry together is incredible. We had a ball making it. And, so fingers crossed that, the audiences come out.
I'm sure they will. I also love the fact that most of the women in not in the forefront, but in the older versions of Shaft, they weren't really characters that were in the forefront of the plot, so to speak. But in this version, they kind of are. So I was wondering what was the impetus for that, because that usually in these types of films you don't usually see women in that role. You usually see them being secondary or kind of like window dressing, for lack of a better word.
Well, look, the story called for the women to be kind of in the forefront and kind of on
It
stage.
did.
Yeah, on stage and on stage, I should say, screen more often and have just some depth to what was going on with them. And then of course I found just great, to have once again we come back to Regina, to have Regina playing, Jesse's mom or JJ's mom, who's in Shaft Jr. Jesse's mom in the film. And to play the love interest of Sam Jackson, to have her, you just want her on screen as much as possible. And she really, as she brought it, and I'm lucky to have her.
I love Regina. We've interviewed her here
She's
at Black
the
Hollywood
best.
Live, and she's really great. I really, really love having her here. So we lost John Singleton this year, and I wanted to know what your thoughts were of picking up the reins from the Shaft franchise from him, so to speak.
Yeah, it really hurts my heart. John and I were able to discuss this for a hot second before I got started with this, and he said, Tim, make it your own. Just go do your thing. And I found that to be, just kind of a cool way for me to go into this. And I was so wanting him to watch this. John and I have had a lot of conversations about my films, about his films, and I kind of felt like he'd have a good time watching it. So it just hurts my heart. But in doing it, I just, like he kind of told me, I just did my thing and just kind of made it my own. And I can't wait for everybody to see it. It's got a lot of me into it. It's got a lot of humor. It's we still keep him cool. We still keep Shaft what he's supposed to be, but we also make you laugh.
Let's talk about that penthouse scene.
Yeah, shooting guns.
Shooting guns in the penthouse. So that's kind of like a throwback to the original Shaft.
Absolutely.
What made y'all include, like, of all the things that you could have included from the old Shaft, what made you include that particular scene?
I just
action-wise?
remember when I finally saw the original Shaft, what was really cool about it is when Richard Roundtree, I guess I'm giving it away, but swung, it's in the trailer, so whatever.
Yeah, it is in the trailer. I'm like,
when they swing into and go through the glass and kind of come into the room and they start firing guns. And I just thought, why not? And then of course, because I had all three of them, I figured if all three of them are doing it, I could also have some fun, which I'm pretty sure people have seen as well. So I could just have a lot of fun with it. And I just always thought, to me, when I was younger, it was just like, that's what made, for me, that was one of the moments that made me look at Shaft as a real superhero, So for him to kind of swing, like Batman would into a room, you got to do it.
I love that. Black Batman.
There you go. Yes.
Well, speaking of Black Batman, you've done some superhero movies yourself. We had a really big one drop this year, Avengers Endgame, which was ending out the whole Avengers franchise,
sure.
right? What are your thoughts about possibly doing another superhero movie? And why would you want to do that?
I think I'm starting to, get the itch to maybe do something like that again. It's,
Ooh.
It's kind of, you love to, like anybody, I'm a filmmaker, I like to blow up stuff and, throw cars and, do things like that. So I can see myself kind of easing back into that and give it a shot. I love making black movies. I love making all types of movies. So it's kind of, to do another superhero, I can see me going there. In
What
a
kind of
few years.
superhero movie would you want to do? Would it be like, excuse me, a curvy, Zoftig black superhero that happens to be a female whose name is Carla Renata?
Right, yeah.
I'm just
host
saying.
by day, hero by night. Sure.
Because seriously, that hasn't been done before. And the only
has
reason I
not.
bring that up is I was watching I was watching Kelly and Ryan, I think a couple of days ago, or maybe last week, and they had Danielle on from Orange is the New Black.
Yeah.
And they asked her what kind of role she would want to do, and she said, I really want to play a plus-size superhero. And I thought, we have not seen that yet.
No, it's
I
coming.
would love to see that.
I'm sure it's on its way.
You should do that. I think you could work that out.
I could freak that. Yeah, I'm with you.
I can freak that.
I shouldn't use that word. No, not freak that. That's wrong.
You
That's
are
wrong.
funny. I cannot.
But I could see myself doing, especially just to kind of do something from a female's perspective would be kind of cool.
Yeah.
It'd be kind of cool.
Okay. I appreciate that, and I totally wholeheartedly agree with that. Let's flip it back just a little
Sure.
bit to your high school days. So were you class president or something?
How'd you find out? Yeah, I was class
That's my job,
president.
dude. I'm a journalist. It is my job to do my research. I don't always, excel at that, but sometimes I do.
Yeah, I was a senior class president.
Yeah. And who was in your class again? Somebody else named Regina?
Yeah, Regina King. Regina King was graduated with me. It's funny, Regina King and I, we've gone to every school together, like since elementary, junior high school, and we also went to college for like 1 year together.
Oh, that's wild.
She's one of my best friends. Like, I mean, I've known her
Aw.
since I was 8, so
Aw.
we're pretty close. That's our families know each other well, and her sister Raina, and we're just family.
When are y'all gonna do something together?
We keep talking about that. We're totally
I
talking
need for
about
that to happen.
Yeah, especially with her, her Oscar, big Oscar win. We had a chance to talk again, and we just always talk about what is it. So we're kind of like, kind of talking about what might happen.
Okay. I'm gonna be looking forward to that. And you
Hey.
got to come back here and talk to me about it when that happens,
Definitely
right?
will. Definitely
And when
will.
you get your like plus size superhero movie too, you got to come back and
Absolutely.
talk to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
You promise?
I do.
Don't play.
I'm not.
Okay.
I'm on camera now, so,
Okay, because I will take that
I
clip and
know
be
you
like,
will.
Tim's story. This is what you said.
I know you will. I'm sure of it.
And you had some other people in your class too. Nia, somebody named Nia.
Nia Long. Now Nia Long was 1 year behind us. But yeah, I had Nia Long.
And another dude. He's a jazz person.
Yes,
Eric.
Eric Reed, who's one of my best friends. Eric Reed played with Wynn Marsalis for years, and he's got a zillion albums on you can find on Spotify or wherever we're finding music now, since iTunes just
Yeah, it's gonna be Apple Music.
Yeah, Apple Music. So,
Apple Music.
But yeah, Eric Reed, one of my best friends. We were all close. If you came out of that, that era, especially that class, we were all pretty close.
Well, clearly there was some magnanimous talent that came out of that class,
Yeah.
yourself included. Let's flip back around one more time to Shaft. What was your favorite scene from like the original though, the original joint? Because that's a classic, and not for nothing, but when that came out, it was a really big deal for Black people because
Yeah.
he was like Richard Roundtree as Shaft was like our first big male superhero.
Absolutely.
Like straight up.
Absolutely.
So what would be your favorite thing
I must
from that
admit,
one?
the most iconic moment that I just kind of just remember and watch, I guess a lot, is the very opening with him walking
down the
to
street.
Yeah, just and you
that
can tell
music.
they totally stole the shot. Like
For
they're not
Saturday-
they were in a building somewhere with a zoom lens, just getting him walking. But just to watch him walking around New York to this music, and they just let the music play. It wasn't, we're not trying to do any crazy titles. They just let it play, and to hear that music and watch him walking in front of cars and all of this, I love that moment.
It's kind of like the
It's
precursor.
just powerful.
It was a very powerful moment, and it's kind of like the precursor to Saturday Night Fever. Remember
Yeah,
that when
yeah.
Tony Manero's walking down the street to the Bee
I
Gees?
never thought about it like they probably stole it from. They probably took it from
And that's
that.
why they have me here, and that's why I make.
I
big
never
bucks.
thought about that way, but it's that kind of zone.
It
It's
really
like
is.
He was just so cool, just walking in the middle of traffic against it. Just go ahead, man.
You are so cool. You are the epitome of cool. So it suffices to say that you are the perfect person to do this incarnation of
thank
Shaft.
you.
Yes,
Thank
most
you.
definitely. What else do you have coming up that you can share with us today?
I'm off to London to shoot Tom and Jerry for Warner Brothers.
Aw.
And so we're doing a hybrid
love
of
Tom
that.
and Jerry.
Yeah, every time we talk about it with people, at some point everybody goes, "Oh my God, So I'm doing that. It's a childhood, I love those cartoons. I watch them always, and so I'm excited to be doing that.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, that is our time, Mr. Tim Story.
Thank you for having me.
I thank you so much for taking time out of your crazy, mad schedule to pop over here and talk with myself over here at Black Hollywood Live. I
Yeah.
really appreciate it, and I'll never forget it. Thank
It's
you.
an absolute pleasure to be here.
All
Thank
right,
you.
cool. So you guys, check out Shaft when it hits theaters. It is produced by New Line Cinema and Warner Brothers. It comes out this week because, as I said at the beginning of the podcast, this was pre-taped. So you will find this movie in your theaters this week. Warner Brothers, check it out. Shaft with Jesse T. Usher, Samuel L. Jackson, Richard Roundtree, Regina Hall, and a whole bunch of other people that you will love too. Until the next time, this is your girl, Carla Renata, a.k.a. the Curvy Film Critic. Love, peace, and hair grease, and I'll see you on the flip side. Bye. I adore Tim K. Story. I had never met him before this week, but he'll definitely come back. He said he was going to come back. Otherwise, I'm going to have to blackmail him with some clips. But I really enjoyed having him here. He was a lot of fun, and I loved surprising him with those few little tidbits of how I knew him. and the people that he knew from his past. So again, you guys check out Shaft by Warner Brothers and New Line Cinema June 14th in your theaters this week. Next up on the schedule is Ron Howard. Now, I'm not going to lie, I was a nervous wreck going to interview Ron Howard because, it's Opie, it's Richie Cunningham. He's a legendary Oscar winning director. Like, who wouldn't be a nervous wreck going to interview him? I sure was. I was a mess. But I love opera. I love Luciano Pavarotti. And who else to talk about that than Ron Howard? So we talked about the man, the legend, the voice, and that famous song of his, Nessa Dorma. Take a listen. So I wanted to tell you first and foremost, I love this documentary so much. I'm such a huge fan of Pavarotti. And I noticed that the through line throughout most of the documentary was using his song Nessa Dorma. And that song has been sung by so many people. Andre Bocelli, Aretha Franklin. Why did you use that particular song as a through line for the film?
Well, it was very central to the sort of next level that he went to it seemed important. And the first time we really shared it is with the three tenors. So that wasn't like him, really giving us what he's got as it relates to Nessa Dorma. But it's also a great piece of music, so powerful. And the idea behind the song is so great that I want it in the movie with it as well.
Yeah, I love that when the last line of the song translates to "I will win," which is what he did over and over and over again in his life.
Through that joy, the great thing is that you didn't feel like he was some sort of, like ambitious, animal monster who's just, I'm gonna, no matter what, I have to succeed. It's really that he just, he would throw his focus on something, whether it was the music, whether it was a relationship, whether it was philanthropy, whether it was his kids at a certain point, and he'd go all in, and it would be this sort of this pursuit of joy and just what he thought was the right thing to do as a person, and that's how he would win, which is, I respect.
He says, with his stage fright, I go to die. Which made me laugh out loud because I'm a singer and I have immensely horrible stage fright. So I was wondering, when you're doing your films and you're about to shoot for the first time on any given project, do you have a saying that you kind of say to yourself before you start?
When I'm feeling overwhelmed, I just focus and I say, okay, what's my job today? Because I like to distill it down to work. I've grown up doing this stuff.
Absolutely.
And so if I can just remember, what are we supposed to be doing right now? Let's put everything else aside for just a minute and get focused on that. That gives me a kind of peace of mind and a little equilibrium, and we do that. And of course, I'm not an opera singer. I don't have to do it alone. I get to do it with a fantastic group of unbelievably talented, committed artists and technicians. And so I love being on the team and sometimes leading the team.
You have directed such brilliant dramas, a few documentaries here and there, and even Curious George. What made you want to direct a documentary around Pavarotti?
Well, I did this documentary a few years ago called The Beatles 8 Days a Week, and this is the same creative team. And we just wanted to work together again because our chemistry was really good. And so Nigel Sinclair, the producer, brought the idea of Pavarotti, and some of us knew a little more about Pavarotti. I didn't know that much, other than that he was great, and I'd heard him and so forth. But when we started delving into his journey and that charisma, and then we began to see that, if you look at the lyrics of these arias, these songs, there are times when he's at a certain age and he's actually singing about something that's very close to what he's living through. And I began to think, oh man, this is like using great songs to help score a movie. We can do an opera about Pavarotti using Pavarotti's performances and these arias. And that became a sort of a early guiding principle.
Well, I loved it.
Thank you.
Absolutely wonderful. It was like watching him in concert for real. And that last moment of him singing Nessa Dorma that last time, it really broke my heart.
Well, I direct actors in close-ups. And when you see what's going through him, somehow he's still performing these notes, which is this kind of physical, it's like athletic, what he's able to do, but still through that, I know he's telling the truth. That guy is expressing himself through that music, and it means a lot to me. And I think it's why, I made the movie really for people who don't know that much about opera. I wanted it to be to feel right and authentic and respect the art form and respect the man for those who really do know. But I think my greatest joy is when I'm hearing from people who sort of say, well, I don't know that much about opera, but wow, what a great story. And I didn't know I could feel the way I felt watching it, through an opera performance. And so that's my goal.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
You guys, I have to say, this week was probably the best week I ever had as the Curvy Critic. I got to interview some majorly huge people. I got to interview Tim Story. I got to interview Ron Howard. I got to interview Tichina Arnold. And none of that, absolutely none of that, would be possible if it weren't for the people tuning in, like Michael B. and others, Victoria, so many other people in the chat room that tune in every week to listen or to watch me, for Black Hollywood Live and their support, Daryl Kristen and Keven Undergaro for their support. None of this would have been possible had I not had the support system in place in the fans here and out there in YouTube and Spotify and iTunes land. So thank you so very, very much for helping me make my dreams come true. Now, I want to go on to a couple of other reviews real quick before we get out of here. I have never seen the X-Men franchise. I knew who the characters were. Like, I knew Halle Berry was Storm. I knew that Hugh Jackman was Wolverine. But that was kind of it for my X-Men knowledge. So when I was invited to see Dark Phoenix, I'm like, oh, okay, let me go check out what the X-Men franchise is about. And it was produced by 20th Century Fox, directed by Simon Kinberg. And I was all about it. What I will say is a lot of my fellow critics dogged it. Like, people went online and let the movie have it and, compared it to other different things. And because I went into it without a comparison in the back of my brain, I was a little more open. What I did love about Dark Phoenix is I love the message of embracing what is different and realizing what is important for a person in their life, whether it is protecting your chosen family or the family that you're born into. I got that message loud and clear with this film. I also was not a big fan of that ending, and not for nothing, but the screening that I happened to go to, the movie stopped 10 minutes before the end of the film. And I was like, why? What is happening? The emergency lights came on. They evacuated us from the theater. We waited about, I guess, maybe 20 minutes or so for them to shuttle us back into the theater. And I was in the overflow theater, so the people that made it into the main theater saw the film from beginning to end. But I was in the overflow theater, which meant my theater screen was all jacked up. That ending, I was like, ooh, is this how we're going to end this? It was a very, very weak ending. But I liked the scenes. I liked the fighting scenes in the subway. I liked the young lady, Sophie Turner, who played Phoenix. I mean, I enjoyed the film. I just wish it had a better ending. And for that reason, I'm kind of like, it kind of left me a little feeling some kind of way. But, go see it yourself. It is in theaters right now. It was released on June 7th. Again, it is directed by Simon Kinberg and produced by 20th Century Fox. That is Dark Phoenix. Now, 3 other films that I want to talk about. One is streaming on Netflix right now. You guys have to go see this film. It is called The Black Godfather. It's not a mafia movie. It's not. It's a documentary. It's a documentary about Clarence Avant. And I've said on this show many times, I used to work in the music industry as a publicist, one of the many jobs and incarnations of careers that I've had over my lifetime. But when I worked in the music industry, I wrote Clarence Avant's name on many a memo about many of artists. And he basically is that person that people would go to when they needed help. There was something about Clarence Avant that industry people in Hollywood and in the music industry really trusted. They trusted his instinct. They trusted if he said something was on up and on the level, they trusted his word, and he was never wrong. Really, he was never wrong. He's been influential not only in the music and Hollywood arenas, but in the political arenas. I mean, he single-handedly had a little bit to do with Clinton getting elected, Carter getting elected, um, Obama getting elected, and he's putting his muscle behind Senator Kamala Harris. So we'll see what happens with her. But and not for nothing, but he's very colorful in his language, and she's the only person that he probably hasn't cussed out. He's from a town which I thought was hilarious called Climax, North Carolina. I was born in North Carolina. I didn't even know that that town existed, which cracked me up. But it suffices that he would be from a town like that because his life has been nothing but a series of climaxes time and time and time again. His daughter, Nicole, who is a former U.S. ambassador, helped produce this film along with Nelson George, who is a former editor for Billboard. Nicole Avon, Byron Phillips, Katrin Rogers, and Netflix, and it's directed by Reggie Hudlin. So if you're at home this weekend or this weekend, you got a little free time, check out The Black Godfather streaming on Netflix right now. Now, I like fashion. I'm not a fashionite. I'm not like, ooh, I gotta wear the latest thing. I'm not that chick. Like, I just wear what fits and makes me feel comfortable. But I remember back in the day, there was this dude named Halston, and Halston was it. He had a perfume. He would make clothing that was fluid and flowy, pretty much like his sexuality. No shade, but he was very fluid in his sexuality. And he had Pat Cleveland was one of his staple models. Liza Minnelli was one of those celebrities that consistently wore his fashion, and Andy Warhol was a big supporter of his. He was the first designer to broker a deal between a department store chain with J.C. Penney, which ultimately ended up being his undoing because he had another deal in place with Bergdorf Goodman, and Bergdorf Goodman was not having that. They were like, yeah, so you went over to J.C. Penney, we're done with you. And I think that pretty much broke his spirit and eventually led to him slowly but surely kind of walking out of the spotlight, in addition to the fact that the powers that be took his own company from him. Now, this was what was really interesting to me about the Halston doc. The same thing that happened with Prince. When Prince was at Warner Brothers and he wanted to leave the label, and they were like, yeah, so you can leave the label, but we own your name. So that's why Prince was walking around for a minute with that symbol on his face, because Warner Brothers owned his name. Now that's messed up. When your God-given name, some lawyers then had you sign some documents that don't even have you realize that you've given up your God-given name. Same thing happened to Halston. He signed some documents that when he was ousted out of his company, they were like, yeah, you can go do some stuff someplace else, but your name stays here. So you guys, if somebody out there is listening that is in the fashion world, in the music industry, a producer, a budding producer, director, make sure that you have a legal person that crosses those T's and dots those I's, so that you don't walk out with a contract without you being able to keep your name. Make sure that you pay attention to what's going on. But at any rate, Halston eventually passed away he contracted AIDS, HIV, and he died from that. But he was a very influential designer for the times. And this documentary is produced by CNN Films and The Orchard. It has some original music by Stanley Clarke, and it's directed by Frederick Chang. So it is out as of June 7th as well. Another film that I saw, Papi Chulo. Now, Papi Chulo was an okay film. In terms of tempo, it moved a little slow to get the point across. But the bottom line was, it covers a subject of how have you handled someone that you have loved and lost? And that's pretty much the premise of this film. Sean, who is a weatherman in Los Angeles, loses his lover and just cannot get over that grief, and he finds solace in a migrant worker named Ernesto, and the film pretty much centers around that relationship. And the biggest thing I got out of it was not only the different way that people deal with grief, is the fact that Ernesto didn't speak English. His English was very broken, and Sean's Spanish was very broken. But even though they had a language barrier, there's no barrier when it comes to humanity. So that's Papi Chulo. Again, that was released on June 7th. It's directed and written by John Butler and produced by Blue Fox Entertainment and Treasure Entertainment. Another film I saw, I know, child, I saw 5,000 movies this week. I'm like running out of breath myself. Framing John DeLorean. This was directed by John Orgott, produced by Sundance Selects, and again, it was released on June 7th. It was kind of like a reenactment slash drama slash documentary on John DeLorean. So if any of you have ever seen that movie Back to the Future, the whole first installment of Back to the Future centers around the time machine car, which is a DeLorean car, which at the time was, the equivalent of, a Lexus or a Porsche or a Tesla or something like that. More probably equivalent to a Tesla. But it was a really big designer luxury car. And John DeLorean is the person that created it. Just like Halston, just like Prince, he too lost the ability to move forward to produce things under his name because of contract issues. He ended up getting arrested for a drug charge because he had run out of money, was robbing Peter to pay Paul, and ended up into some unsavory situations and dealings and whatnot, and it pretty much ended up being the demise of his corporation, his name, his company, his whole empire just crumbled. Not only did his empire crumble, but his home life crumbled. His wife was Christina Ferrari, who was a huge supermodel at the time. She left him. His kids, I mean, it's a whole mess. But this particular documentary slash real life slash reenactment deals with all those issues, and they do it by having Alec Baldwin be made up to be John DeLorean, which was kind of weird for me because he really just kind of looked like John. You know how when Alec Baldwin does Donald Trump on SNL, it pretty much just looked like, Alec Baldwin doing Donald Trump as John DeLorean. And I love Alec Baldwin, no shade, I love him, but the whole thing was just a little weird to me. But if you're interested in cars, if you like Back to the Future, if you're intrigued by John DeLorean, I highly suggest watching Framing John DeLorean. Again, produced by Sundance Selects, directed by John Orgott, and it was released also on June 7th. Now, some other films that were released on June 7th, or another film, I should say, that was released on June 7th was The Secret Life of Pets 2. I saw the first one, Secret Life of Pets 1, and I made a conscious choice I was gonna see The Secret Life of Pets 2, and because of the recent death of my personal pet, I really honestly didn't think I could handle it, and then as life would have it, I ended up having some scheduling conflicts which prevented me from seeing it. But I wouldn't prevent you from seeing it, and I wouldn't prevent encouraging you to see it. So, The Secret Life of Pets is produced by Illumination Pictures, and not for nothing, but Harrison Ford is doing a voice, and Tiffany Haddish is doing some voices up in there. So, if nothing else, go see it to hear Harrison Ford, Tiffany Haddish, and Kevin Hart. Kevin Hart is playing that outrageous little bunny. If nothing else, go see a superhero bunny. That could be fun. But yeah, it's just all the films this week were really interesting. And they were all very entertaining, very engaging. I want to thank Victoria Williams and Michael B in the chat room for hanging in there. Thank you. Michael B's like, we got you, girl. And Victoria's like, she'll follow and look forward to more interviews. And she told me she appreciates my style. I appreciate you appreciating me. So thank you very much. So that is my time, people. That went fast and furious in this solo journey of the Curvy Critic with Carla Renata. Tune in next week when I will give you a special sneak peek of some AFI docs from the AFI Docs Film Festival, which I will be attending in a few weeks from the 19th, I think, through the 23rd. It happens in Washington, D.C. every year and is a film festival totally devoted to documentary films, which are my favorite jam. Love me some documentary films. I'll also be speaking to the subjects and filmmakers of a documentary that's going to be featured at that festival called St. Louis Superman. Of course, I'm from St. Louis, so I got to hook up my homies. I don't want to tell you what that's about, but it's a short film. I will tell you that. It's a short film, and I'll tell you more about that next week. I'll also be talking about Emmanuel, which is produced by Mariska Hargitay, Viola Davis, and Steph Curry. It is a documentary about the shooting at the Emmanuel AME Church in South Carolina. I'll also be talking about Men in Black International, and Being Frank. So until next week, thank you so much again for joining me here at the Curvy Critic with Carla Renata at Black Hollywood Live for episode 63. Join me next week for episode 64 for all those films that I just mentioned. And until the next time, love, peace, and hair grease, y'all. I'll see you on the flip side.
On behalf of our BHL staff, we would like to thank you for tuning in to Black Hollywood Live, the world's first digital broadcast network devoted entirely to urban entertainment and pop culture. Check out our Black Hollywood Live YouTube page for even more great programming and amazing content, and be sure to subscribe and like our channel when you do. I'm your BHL host, Nakia Monet, and you can find me on all social media at Kiki Boom Boom or at Black Hollywood Live. Black Hollywood Live, Hollywood redefined.